You got me good, Tammy? You got me good? Welcome to another edition of Drugs, Crime, and Politics, sponsored by the Drug Policy Forum of Texas. My name is Steve, and I'll be your host tonight. Bindu wasn't able to make it. We were going to be having Rosie Ruiz as our guest tonight, but she had some things coming up with work, so we're going to try to schedule her in and get her back in the studio sometime in November. But Dean was graciously able to come up and fill in. We got a lot of things to talk about. One of the main things coming up, I guess, in the Houston area is Houston Normal will be having a test screening of a movie called Hempsters. Basically, it's about, in Kentucky, Woody Harrelson, he was challenging the hemp law over there, and he planted 4 feral industrial hemp seeds, and of course, he got arrested for that, and he took it to court and actually ended up getting acquitted on that. But this screening is produced by a guy up in Dallas, Michael Henning, and it's a little over an hour long. We're going to be having it over at Super Happy Funland. Doors open at 8 o'clock. We'll do the screening about 9. We'll get Michael to give a little introduction, and Gatewood Galbraith, he'll actually be coming in from Kentucky, and he'll be our guest speaker there. He's a great speaker, ran for governor in Kentucky, and he's an attorney, and which actually I guess ties into a little bit of news we got that happened, what was it, Monday? Willie Nelson, his tour bus got stopped in Louisiana, and they found 1.5 pounds of marijuana and some mushrooms. I think they said it was like 91 grams, which is what, a little over 3/4 of a pound.
3/16 of a pound.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So actually, they didn't take them in. They gave them a ticket, and the bus driver lost his commercial driving privileges, but they didn't take them in. I'm sure that, as you know, our government, they'll take them to court, and actually, as in the case of Ed Rosenthal, they might come up with charges after the fact too. So it may not be just a simple traffic ticket-like offense. We hope Willie didn't have to go to jail like Tommy Chong did, or Ed Rosenthal. Well, of course, Ed only went one day, but he's still going through it. But what other news do we have going on, Dean?
Well, I think it's important to realize that the drug war impacts just about every aspect of our lives. It spills over into other countries. The demand that the U.S. has creates problems in other countries where they provide the supply. As in Mexico, where another couple of police chiefs have been gunned down in the last 10, 12 days.
Not to mention whenever they went into the dance hall and threw the severed heads on the floor from the turf wars going on in there?
Exactly, and with a cardboard warning that said something, this is what happens to those who disagree. We don't kill women and children, but this is, some sort of blessing.
Don't stand in our way.
Yeah, don't stand in our way. And the point is, there was, I guess, 5 weeks ago, they took out one of the Arellano Felix brothers and said, we've chopped off the head of the snake.
I remember
and
that.
Yet the fact be that what they did was create a job opportunity of who wants to be a billionaire. Because as long as that demand is there and people can make these millions, in fact billions, by turning flowers into gold, it will continue.
Oh, definitely. Actually, one of the producers from an earlier show, he was talking about Hugo Chavez talking to the United Nations today, and he is mentioning the coca, I guess, trade as far as down there. I know Evo Morales in Bolivia, he's last I heard, he was wanting to export some of the coca tea. I know that the U.S. was giving him some grief over that, because actually in Bolivia, for the regular local residents, they can have their coca leaves and all that.
Well, I've heard it said that if you visit the U.S. Embassy in Bogota and you get that altitude sickness, that they'll bring you a cup of tea to help with that feeling, and the tea is coca tea. Just this week, something that hinges on that or branches from that, there's a new product on the market being marketed in Los Angeles and New York.
and it's called cocaine. And I saw a report done on MSNBC the other day. It's the maker said it's 3.5 times as strong as Red Bull. And she gave him some flack. Well, aren't you afraid it's sending the wrong message, et cetera, et cetera? And he says, well, we're not so much worried about that. We prefer people quit drinking so much alcohol, which that's a whole other thing.
Is it spelled the same as cocaine?
It is spelled exactly the same. And it occurred to me that there is a product, it's been on the market now for these 100 years, that has used that same name. It is called Coca-Cola. And in its beginnings, it had cocaine in it. But they still bill it as the real thing.
Or actually, isn't the Coca-Cola in South America, doesn't that have the original formula still? It's just, well, actually, it's denatured whenever they send it up north. It's just, you know, it doesn't have any of the, I guess, intoxicating effects. It has the flavoring of it.
Right. It doesn't have the alkaloid, I think, is what it is. But it takes us back to the situation. When Prohibition began, people were using coca products and opium products and marijuana, and hash candy bars were available at the drugstore. You could buy it much the same as any other product. There were no restrictions, and children were not using it. We didn't have gangs. There were no cartels. Oh, you know, these Islamic extremists were certainly not making money by turning flowers into gold. And the truth be told, the products that were available were a lot less harmful than what the black market is giving us in this day and age, because what's easier to smuggle, coca leaves or some opium, or the extracts, the cocaine and the heroin, the powerful stuff that can in fact kill you. So what we've done is create this situation. We have no one to blame but ourselves. We export this misery to countries worldwide.
Definitely. They'll threaten economic sanctions and, you know, various strong-arm tactics, you know, as far as taking away various benefits or money or, you know, favorable trade status if they think that you're encouraging the drug trade. I know they do that yearly certification on the different countries.
Yes, and in fact, they just did that. Several countries, I think it was a dozen or better, were found to be lacking. And yet...
So they put Afghanistan on there?
Oh, yes. But they dispensed with the restrictions that all of them will get their money as long as they promise to do right. And speaking of Afghanistan, as of 2005, they were growing more than 90% of the world's opium and thus heroin extractions. And yet this year, I understand that the harvest is up some 70%. Now, I can't tell you what that extrapolates into, but it's in the high 90s now of the world's supply of heroin under U.S. control.
Well, isn't the Taliban starting to get in on it too? Because I know before, whenever they were... Whoops, I think we got a call.
All right. No, not that. I think that was a test.
Okay, let me turn the ringer off here. But, yeah, whenever the Taliban first came into power, they'd pretty much stomped it out. But aren't they now kind of using it as a funding mechanism?
Oh, indeed. They don't grow it, but they tax the farmers.
Protection money?
Provide protection. It's the old protection racket. It's what works in the U.S. There are those in the U.S., the smarter ones, the richer ones, who buy police protection, who are able to buy the lawyers and sometimes the judges to continue with their multi-billion-dollar, and I say multi-billion, I should say multi-hundred-billion-dollar industry, because
over the course of years.
Well, in the U.S., each year we give, some say 70, some say 100 billion to these law enforcement officials to continue this drug war. But we seem to overlook the fact that each year we also give 400 to 500 billion to the terrorists, to the criminals, to the gangs, to the street corner vendor selling drugs to our children. 400 to 500 billion. So each year it's at least $500 billion that we throw down the toilet because we think it's going to work this year.
Yeah, and you have to look at the whole picture, you know, the money that's supplied to law enforcement also, as well as the illicit profits from the black market, because I'm not saying that law enforcement officers want people to overdose or anything, but they do have a certain, you know, I guess, feeling of wanting to being needed or job security.
Oh, yes.
Because especially in the case of marijuana. If the medical marijuana was regulated, industrial hemp was allowed to be grown,
Right.
And if people responsible adult use, then over half of the cases, it would just not necessarily dry up, because some people would still have some problems with marijuana. I mean, no drug thing is into excess. You always have problems if you take things into excess, but for the most part, it would, dry up.
Yes, and I think that's the half of it, that it seems to be kind of a lure, the rebellion, the flaunting of authority, the desire to get one over, I suppose. They say in California, where medical marijuana is legal, that the number of young users has actually gone down, because it loses its allure when it's grandma's medicine. And the truth be told, that with as I said earlier, every step we take, we contribute to the problem.
Definitely. But you said you had some clips that you brought with you.
Well, I did. We were talking marijuana. Let me preface this with, first off, I am a member of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, a speaker for this group, leap.cc on the web. And we are a group of about 5,000 members. These are people who have been in law enforcement, plus those who think we're doing the right thing and want to support our efforts. And we have about 100 plus, I would say, former law enforcement and justice officials who are willing to speak to any organization. And what do we say? The drug war is a hopeless failure. It has no chance of success. We want to take away the criminals' ability to turn these flowers into gold. We want to restore respect to the law enforcement who have, as I said earlier, too many times been tainted by the black market billions.
Definitely. We want to encourage the callers to call in. Our number is 713-807-1794. And if you have any questions or comments, and Art, do we have that clip of Dean's queued up?
All right. Give me 1 second here. I want to show you. It's running. Oh, okay. Well, what you're seeing there on screen, that's Eddie Lepp. He's a minister, and he has planted 60,000 seeds plants, I should say, in California, and has been busted twice by the federal government. Are we out?
Hello, my name's Eddie.
There we go.
I was the first person arrested, tried, and acquitted in the state of California under Proposition 215-11362.5 of the California Health and Safety Code, or the Compassionate Use Act, allowing for the use of marijuana as a medicine by anyone who has a doctor's recommendation. Shortly after I became the first person arrested and acquitted, my wife and I, Linda, became very active. We had been active for several years prior to this, but we became very active in the activism work of the marijuana movement. And over the last 10 years, I've done everything from be the national director for the American Medical Marijuana Association to being recognized worldwide, internationally for our activist work. I'm currently facing 4 life sentences, $17 million in fines, and an additional 40 years and $600 in special assessments, because my wife and I grew medicine for patients through our ministry. For the last year and a half, 2 years, we've been tied up in court and have been pretty well prohibited from doing anything. However, this last summer, my wife formed her own ministry and replanted the gardens, and is now willing to face the 4 life sentences that I'm facing to continue to grow medicine for the sick and dying patients of California. It is our most heartfelt and firm belief that our religious practices are no business of the state or the federal government. Everything we have done through our ministry, and is done by us as the Lord's sacred work. We view this beautiful plant as sacrament and believe it to be the true tree of life. Right now, my legal problems are somewhat in limbo, although we have made the court aware that we wish to proceed at this time and no longer wish to waive our rights. Based on the UDV decision, which was reached about 6 months ago, the religious use of marijuana as a sacrament should be something that's very easily taken care of through the court system due to the fact that the UDV decision allows for the use of the Watuska tea, which, if taken improperly, can and does cause death. And when you compare that tea to marijuana, it's like comparing battery acid to ice water. So if they've made the battery acid legal, I don't see how they can not make the ice water legal. Currently, my wife Linda is suffering from stage 4 cancer of the lung, and sadly probably won't be alive this time next year to enjoy the Hemp Fest with us. Because of the Western medicine not working, or the chemotherapy, we are now in the process of trying alternative methods to save her, and she is now at a sanctioned Lakota Sioux sun dance, where many of the sun dancers are dancing to try to save her life. We believe very strongly that the spiritual aspect of the human soul is something that has to be completely and totally considered when using these sacred plants, because if your soul is full of hatred and anger and bigotry and all of the negative, petty feelings that so destroy mankind, then marijuana will work to a certain extent. But if you can free your soul of all of the negative things, if you can learn to understand that the Creator doesn't want us destroying each other, He wants us building each other up, He wants us to be the best that we can be and to treat each other with respect and dignity. And if you can get yourself to accept the fact that spiritually there is something greater than us, and use the marijuana in conjunction with a different outlook on life, then it works more than just as a quick fix. It works all day, every day, and it works in every aspect of your life. It can be used to heal a whole lot more than just an ache or a pain, although it is certainly very effective at doing that. We would ask that any of you that are interested feel free to join us. You can contact us at eddysmedicinalgardens.com or at mdmj.info for more information about the ministry and our spiritual and religious use of marijuana as sacrament.
Eddie, I got to get to the stage.
Well, I think it's important that we talk about the problem Eddie's facing. He is a legitimate member, one of many cannabis sacrament-using ministers here in the U.S. and around the world. And Eddie faces, untold millions in fines and decades in prison for wanting to bring this plant to his constituents. And I too am a minister, the Church of Evident Truth, which is our only requisite for becoming a member of our church is to believe in truth. And because we have walked away from this in this nation, we have embraced lies for capitalist purposes. We have endorsed the prophets over the prophets, and we have given up our rights, our liberties, our freedoms in the name of I'm not sure what, supposed security. And we must realize that the drug war will never make us secure. This war of terror will never make us secure. We have to believe in the reality that is in front of our eyes. We have to embrace the truth and begin to accept the truth as our master rather than following the lies.
Well, whenever you start with the lies, everyone knows one lie leads to another and to another until you get so convoluted that you start believing your own lies.
Right. Well, you mentioned a lot of folks don't believe what George Bush is up to is a valid, useful thing for our nation or for the planet, calling him the devil.
Chavez, I'm sure George, I don't think he was too shocked to hear that from Hugo, since they're back and forth that they've had over the past couple of years, which actually I think started with attempted coup, wasn't it?
Well, they actually had a coup, and then they kind of undid it because everyone objected.
People were rallying.
Yeah, and the U.S. was so quick to accept this coup and to recognize the new government, the only outside government to do so, I believe. And we have to realize that we've been set up like children to depend on these corporate provisions, if you will.
Well, that's part of the checks and balances that should be kept as part of the executive office and the legislative branch and the judicial branch, because you need those checks and balances, because especially since I don't really know if I would call ourselves a superpower, but we are one of the pretty much the main nation. But as we've seen, if other countries, they join together, that they can say no to America and still survive.
Yes, yes, and even small countries can fight the major powers, as has been proven in Iraq now for these 3 years, and as Hezbollah even did in Lebanon just earlier this month. Stood up to that power.
The spirit of the people. The
spirit of the people, and a few munitions and a good attitude. The same as you reach back to the revolutionary times, and a few men with muskets and an attitude were able to stop the world's then superpower, Great Britain. It all depends on your definition of truth. It really does. I mean, do we want to continue arresting? It's now up to 1.7 million Americans every year, for pockets full of plant products. I mean, it sounds like something out of the Salem witchcraft trials to me.
And if you have more than a few baggies with you, you're a kingpin.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the lies, they just keep piling up and piling up. Like whenever the FDA said this spring that marijuana has no medical value. Actually, Dwayne, if you're watching tonight, if you'll check the Houston Normal website, I did get some of those scans up there. I need to redo one of the pictures, but we're in the process of getting historical documentation up on the Normal website. John tells me we got a caller here. Caller, you're on the air. Did you have a question or comment?
Yes. When I travel to other countries that do not have this war on drugs, I know that drugs are legal, I guess, but they don't really impact everyday life. I think the war on drugs, the war is the problem.
Exactly.
And it has changed our police force. It has militarized our police force. And there's so much money, corporate money, that's being made in the name of the war on drugs that I don't know if it'll ever stop. But I think the war on drugs is really the problem. It's hurting our Constitution. It gives people, the police, for example, an opportunity to trample on the Constitution. Years ago, our police did not do things like that, but they're becoming more and more militarized. But anyways, excellent show. Thank you very much.
All right,
thanks
you for the comment. Yeah, used to, they would be peace officers. Now they're SWAT teams.
Just about 6-8 weeks ago, the Cato Institute put out a report. They had done a study on the abuses of the SWAT teams all across America, listing the deaths and the bashing into the wrong apartments, the fire set, the problems generated by these SWAT teams, which I believe, as a former police officer, we need these SWAT teams for special situations, special weapons and tactics.
Not serving warrants.
Not serving drug warrants and kicking in the door of exactly, which the U.S. Supreme Court said that was okay just a few weeks back. I think we have another call.
I think the lines are lighting up. Caller, you're on the air. Did you have a question or comment?
Yes, I do. Are you aware of the allegations that the federal government was behind the crack cocaine going into South Central Los Angeles, and what's your feelings on that? I'll take my answer off the air.
Okay, thanks for the call. Actually, we have brought that up before as far as, what was it, the Sandinistas or
the Contras, yes.
The Contras.
Yes.
And where they would, send up cocaine in exchange for guns and other, I guess, military supplies as part of their ongoing civil war they had down there.
Exactly. And there was a gentleman, Gary Webb was his name. He wrote a newspaper series and then became a book, Dark Alliance, which talked very much about this situation. And of course, there's no record, no memos or means to prove this to 100% certainty, but many of the
wasn't Ollie North the fall guy as far
well, yes, but many of the allegations put forward by Gary Webb, he was immediately denigrated and cast aside by newspapers like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the L.A. Times for being, he's just off base, he's crazy, it has no basis, it's unreal. And yet over the years, many of the things he brought forward have been proven time after time to be correct. Now, insofar as can you say, the CIA helped start the crack epidemic? Well, again, there is no memo to that effect, but there are many indications and validations that show their involvement, at the very least, in the distribution of that cocaine.
Well, they may have been, into introducing that form of it, but people were freebasing before that, right, which is, basically, getting cocaine to its stronger form.
Right, and I guess what we really should focus on, what do we want out of the drug war? I ask people everywhere I go, what do you think the drug war is all about? Why does it exist? Well, the money, but what is its supposed, its intended reason for existence? And the truth be told, most people say, well, I don't know, or money, but the fact is, it's hopeless. It's a failure. What do I want to do? I want to legalize the distribution of this stuff, get rid of the work for Osama, for the cartels, for the gangs. I want to take away the reason. I want to eliminate the reason that most of these street gangs exist. I want to take away our children's easy access. I want to basically bring the number of overdose deaths down to zero. I want to get rid of the number, curtail the number of AIDS and Hep C cases that people get from sharing needles or going to prison. And in general, I want to clean up the law enforcement's tarnished badge, because too many cops have been corrupted over the years. Too many billions have found their way to people who started out wanting to serve and support their community. Yeah, but the money just became too much.
The latest we had, what was it, the airport air marshals?
Well, not the latest, but one of many. Yes, indeed. It brings up something. Something else I'd like to share with the audience. I am a producer for KPFT Radio and for the Drug Truth Network. Just this week, I picked up affiliate station number 64 in the U.S. and Canada, and we interview best we can the top of the line. We try to bring drug warriors on. The drug czar, he won't come. Members of the DEA, no one will come on and defend this policy. But we do bring on people willing to talk, judges, congressmen, scientists, doctors, lawyers, all these people who have spent time in the trenches, Nobel laureates, members of the European Parliament, authors like this week's guest, Gary Berntsen. He was the CIA head who led the effort to invade Afghanistan following the attack on 9/11. Gary Berntsen, he will be my guest this Friday on KPFT. That's 90.1 FM here in Houston, and it'll be on the web at drugtruth.net. But I guess my point I want to make here is that we have been bamboozled. We've been fed these lies for so long, we believe it's true. It's like the old story about the emperor, his new clothes having no substance, and that's what I think the drug war is. It has no substance at all.
Well, we're about to be taking our half-point break. It's going to be a little longer this time. I got the Name That Drug by its Side Effects that you sent over, and also Name That Drug War History, as well as a PSA for the upcoming Hempsters test screening going on at Super Happy Funland. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to give us a ring after the break. The number is 713-807-1794. We'd love to hear from you. Once again, you're watching Drugs, Crime, and Politics, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. This week in drug war history, September 16th, 2003. Seattle voters approve Initiative 75, which instructs local police and prosecutors to make adult marijuana possession their lowest priority. September 17th, 1998. 93 members of Congress vote yes in the first vote on medical marijuana to take place on the floor of the House. September 17th, 2002. Santa Cruz, California officials allow a medical marijuana giveaway at City Hall to protest federal raids. September 20th, 1999. The public is finally informed of the results of Washington, D.C.'s Initiative 59, the legalization of marijuana for medical treatment initiative of 1998, after Judge Richard Roberts allows the release of the tally previously suppressed by Congress. Voters had supported medical marijuana by 69 to 21%. September 21st, 1969. In an attempt to reduce marijuana smuggling from Mexico, the Customs Department, under Commissioner Miles Ambrose, launches Operation Intercept, subjecting every vehicle crossing the Mexican border to a 3-minute inspection and to many observers, marking the beginning of the modern war on drugs. The operation lasts 2 weeks and wreaks economic havoc on both sides of the border, but fails to seriously impact the flow of marijuana into the U.S. This is Steve Nolan for the Drug Truth Network.
It is no problem telling the difference between hemp and marijuana. They're both cannabis in the same way that Danny DeVito and Dennis Rodman are both adult males. If a law enforcement officer can't tell the difference, he ought to get the hell out of law enforcement.
Houston Normal will be hosting the Houston premiere of the movie Hempsters on Saturday, September 23rd at Super Happy Funland. Directed by Michael Henning and starring Willie, Woody Harrelson, Gatewood Galbraith, and Alex White Plume, Hempsters spotlights the struggle to legalize industrial hemp for Americans. Super Happy Funland is located at 2610 Ashland Street. Doors open at 8, and the screening will begin at 9. We'll have as our special guest one of the stars of the movie and author of Last Free Man in America, Gatewood Galbraith. That's Saturday, September 23rd at Super Happy Funland, 2610 Ashland. For more information about Houston Normal, please visit houstonnormal.org.
It's time to play Name That Drug by its side effects.
Reyes syndrome, destructive effects on the heart and blood flow in newborn infants, severe constipation, diabetes, dysentery, hemophilia, kidney disease, gout, upset stomach, and ulcers. Time's up. The answer from the manufacturer.
Pepto-Bismol. Your heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea. Pepto-Bismol. Think there's more than you think.
Welcome back to Drugs, Crime, and Politics, sponsored by the Drug Policy Forum of Texas. We've been pretty much going all over the map. We've got Dean here filling in for Bindu. She wasn't able to make it tonight. But we've been going over different things as far as different news coming up. One thing that we didn't mention was as far as the expanded school searches that they're trying to, raise the level of what they can do to kids at school. Have you heard much about that as far as when it's going to be held for debate?
I heard that it was, in fact, passed by the Congress, by the House.
Well, I know I'd gotten an email alert to let the representatives know that you...
No, it was passed today by the House. The fact is it hasn't even been brought forward in the U.S. Senate. They're talking about some friends of mine saying, let's don't even bother the senators. Perhaps they're unaware of it. We don't want to agitate them. We don't want one of them to think it should be brought forward. So as long as the Senate doesn't even bring it up, this passage by the House, which, again, was done by voice vote, and I think had they done an actual tally, they probably, there's a chance it might not have even passed the House. But you know them Republicans, they get all boisterous and loud. So it passed by a voice vote today.
Well, I guess since they found out they were getting a pretty good resistance from the Hispanic and immigration community, that they'd try to pick on somebody they might have a more chance to bully. But it looks like we've got another caller, you're on the air. Do you have a question or comment?
Hey, Steve, this is Bindu.
Ah, hey, I was wondering if you was going to call in. Actually, we were just talking about the school searches.
Exactly, yeah. So I thought it was the most apt time to call in. The Student Teacher Safety Act of 2006. That was actually voted on yesterday afternoon, and unfortunately was passed in the House. But we still have an opportunity to defeat this bill. It hasn't been passed in the Senate. And Students for Sensible Drug Policy and Drug Policy Alliance are doing as much as they can to defeat this bill. And what actually, I don't know if you mentioned what it does, but it's actually a very poorly written bill. SSDP worked on it quite a bit previously, from changing the language from colorable suspicion to reasonable suspicion, which doesn't sound like much, but it actually is a lot, from basically, being able to say whenever you want to actually having a reasonable doubt.
Probably has some election time bravado into it.
Exactly. And it's put under the guise of the name Student Teacher Safety Act. Really what it does is just impinging more upon the rights of students and alienating our youth and everything from administration and from these searches and everything. Basically, school officials would be able to conduct random, warrantless searches of every single student in the entire school at any time for any reason they want. Anything from suspect that one of their students might be carrying drugs, and they could conduct a wide-scale search of every student in the building. These searches range from pat-downs, bag searches, or even worse, strip searches.
Well, don't they have that authority to do it already anytime you're on school property?
I don't believe that they can conduct searches that far-ranging.
Are they talking cavity probe or what?
Well, basically what they're trying to do is avoid anything avoid any kind of suspicion like what happened in the Goose Creek scandal in North Carolina in 2003.
Yeah, I know.
And tell us about that, though. Really, give us some of that detail of what happened there in Goose Creek.
Basically, in 2003, there were 150 students were subjected to the terrorization of the machine gun-toting SWAT team. These are not fake guns. These were real guns pointed in the students' faces. It was actually South Carolina. The principal suspected one of the students might be selling marijuana. There's videotape. I'm sure you can find it on the Drug Policy Alliance or Students for Sensible Drug Policy website still. But, these kids were thrown to the floor. Some of them were handcuffed. They ran out of handcuffs, started using plastic handcuffs. All of them were on the floor at gunpoint, dogs running all over them. Tore through their book bags, lockers, and no drugs or guns were ever found.
And I want to throw something in here. That was a mixed-race school, about half and half black and white. But as it turns out, the vast majority of those who were corralled in this major hallway were, in fact, black students gathering before the school day began.
Right.
Yeah, and actually, there was quite a bit of a ruckus raised in the activist and reform community, and actually I think the principal did end up getting fired over that, didn't he?
I do not know the answer to that. It brings to mind something, though, that I think we should realize, that this drug war is a leech. It is a parasite on our nation, on the world. What they want to do, in essence, is to be able to strip search and to drug test every student every day if need be. And many of these people leading these efforts, many of these people who want to drug test our kids, have holdings in these urine testing companies. A prime example, a former drug czar, a man who now holds a major stock in some of these hair and urine testing companies, is Robert DuPont. And he was interviewed about 2 weeks ago, asked how many children needed to be tested. And he said all of them. All of them.
Well, I think that Representative Woolsey of California said it best when she said this new program would basically label all youth as guilty. So, I mean, that's just basically choosing them, showing them as guilty without any kind of evidence or such. I think we should try to basically avoid this as much as possible. And so I guess in parting, I'd like to say that this bill can still be it still needs to be passed with a companion bill before the end of legislative session. Please contact Students for Sensible Drug Policy. They're working as hard as they can to defeat this bill and prevent it from becoming law. And the organizations that are opposed to it are Drug Policy Alliance, SSDP, the ACLU, American Association of School Administrators, the National School Boards Association, and the National PTA. So I think that kind of says something right there.
And that's ssdp.org for Students for Sensible Drug Policy, ssdp.org. All right, thanks for calling in, Bindu.
Great.
And we'll see you next time.
Great. Have a great show.
All right, thanks. If you want to call in, the number is 713-807-1794. Actually, this expanded search is pretty much the latest hedge on the Hydra. When it started, was it about 5 or 6 years ago in the late 90s? Actually, I guess it'd be more than that. Was it Larry Tannehill up in North Texas whenever his kid wasn't going in any extracurricular activities, wasn't doing anything. He was just a student, and they wanted them to submit to drug tests, and Larry Tannehill said no. They took it to court. Of course, you know our government, they have our tax money to use against us, so they just keep going and going, and apparently this is the latest head on the Hydra.
Oh, exactly. And again, I mean, I listed out all of the solutions that are at hand the day we regulate the distribution of these drugs. What we've got to do is begin judging people by their actions, like it was done for centuries, for millennia. Judge people by their actions, not the contents of their pocket. I wanted to kind of, if I could, kind of cross-promote my forthcoming video, The Unvarnished Truth, the counterculture or pro-culture. Why are we, considered to be counterculture when we want peace, freedom, and liberty? And I guess I want to reach back to the video that was done in Seattle. I was able to talk to various folks that you wouldn't think, not the long-haired, ponytailed hippie, the fringe of our society. No, I talked to many good people up there, and one of those I spoke to was, I think a big surprise. If we have that video ready, it'll show you that the counterculture is not exactly 14-year-olds smoking a joint in an alleyway.
Okay, Art, you want to go ahead and run that clip?
All right, my name is Sandy Burbank. I'm the Executive Director of Mothers Against Misuse and Abuse, or fondly known as MAMA. We've been dealing with the issues of substance abuse since 1982. We have a program based on personal responsibility and informed decision-making, but always with respect for human dignity. We teach people how to make responsible choices when they're considering using a drug, and teach them how to tell if they're in trouble. Our children are now grown and have joined us in our efforts.
All right, and tell us where your organization is and how far of a reach you may have.
Well, we started in Mosier, Oregon, which is a town in north central Oregon, right on the Washington border. 7 mothers got together in 1982 and decided we needed to figure out a way to teach our families how to make better decisions about drugs. So they weren't just hearing the hysteria about marijuana and those kinds of drugs, but really learning about things like alcohol, tobacco, and over-the-counter drugs, prescription drugs. Those are the ones that kill the most people. So we've been working for years out of Mosier. We've won many awards, including an award for our book, Using Alcohol Responsibly. We have another book, Drug Consumer Safety. We won many awards. I won't even go into it. You can go to our website, which is at mamas.org, and everything is up there. Not only do we have educational programs, we deal with issues of parenting. We like to teach the whole family the issues of making good decisions, because it doesn't do any good to teach the kids if the parents themselves are setting a bad example and sending wrong messages to their children. We now have a medical marijuana clinic in Portland, Oregon, that we've been running for the last year and a half. where we help patients get registered for the Oregon Medical Marijuana Program and additionally counsel them on how to reduce any harm that could be used by using cannabis with other medicines they might be taking. We teach them the variety of ways that cannabis can be used medicinally and ingested, and we also teach them about the law. It's a wonderful opportunity to teach people who have already made a decision to take on personal responsibility for the decisions they're making regarding cannabis and open their mind to the concept of making those same kind of decisions regarding all drug use.
Very good. Very good.
Okay, one of the things that Mama has been doing is something that is involved into what we call our Truth Squad. We've been going to meetings. Usually these meetings are very tightly controlled. There's some sort of distorted message, usually from the federal government, and they come into our communities. They call them town hall meetings. They're about things like the new, stronger marijuana, and, you know, marijuana is the same as it used to be centuries ago. They want to talk about student drug testing and those kinds of things. What we've been doing is we go to our meetings with signs that are already laminated. They say, tell the truth, and they're double-sided. When people start their discussion, we hold up the tell the truth signs. When they tell lies, we hold up a sign that says stop the lies. We have these posters on our website, as well as posters that show the annual drug fatalities, that show that cannabis is way at the bottom with no fatalities, and that tobacco, alcohol, prescription drugs, and over-the-counter drugs kill hundreds of thousands of people every year. We invite you to join the Mama Truth Squad. All you have to do is silently raise your sign, and you'll be surprised at how many other people in the audience might support what you say and how it might affect the way you get answers from the people who are being asked the questions. We need to stop the lies at their source. Join us with the Mama Truth Squad and go to our website at mamas.org, print out the posters, and go to those meetings in your hometown. I think you'll be excited by what happens.
Okay, well, thanks for bringing that clip out. And you said that was going to be on the forthcoming project you're working on?
Unvarnished Truth, counterculture or pro-culture. What's up with that?
Okay, well, Art tells me we got a caller on the air, so let's go ahead and bring them on. Caller, did you have a question or a comment? You there? I think we lost him. If you want to call back, the number is 713-807-1794. And, yeah, we had shown the clip that you had done. I guess it was like, where were you at, New Jersey, New York?
Right, with
I guess
Jack
it was about
Cole.
a month or two ago. And then we had the clip from Seattle, the Hemp Fest. And I know we've played some clips as far as from San Francisco. Where are you going to next as far as...
Well, I have a couple of junkets planned, one to San Francisco for talking about treatment. How do we treat our kids? Maybe is a better way to put it, in schools. And but in mid-November, I'm heading to Bolivia. Actually going to go down there and tour some coca fields, find out how the people use the coca products, see what's on the shelf.
With San-Ho Tree?
With San-Ho Tree.
Okay.
We're going to go down there with a couple of other reformers and or newsmen, I suppose, and we'll be bringing back reports from Bolivia that I think will help quell some of your fears, because fear is what makes the drug war work. Your fear and your inability and, excuse me, but your ignorance. There is no truth involved in this drug war. It's easy to ascertain. Please go to some of these websites we're talking about. They count on your fear and your ignorance to make it last forever so that they can make these hundreds of billions every year.
Well, John tells me we got our caller back. Caller, you're on the air. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I need to talk about the weed situation.
Okay. What, as far as medical marijuana or industrial hemp or personal responsible use?
No, I think, you should legalize pot.
Okay, well, there's been, different state laws. What are we up to now? 11, as far as that has medical marijuana state laws. Of course, the federal law is still, they classify that as a Schedule I drug, which which you can't prescribe, so it's definitely being worked on in the Texas legislature. The past 3 sessions, we've had some kind of marijuana bill on there, and actually announced or less making it a Schedule or Class C misdemeanor. That actually made it through committees, got up to the scheduling committee, but they kind of tabled it from there. So we're getting closer and closer, especially here in Texas.
Well, let me ask you a question.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay, for legalizing marijuana, how many people have you known that freaked out on marijuana and killed somebody?
None.
Depends which newspaper you read.
Well, yeah.
None.
Yeah. The comedian Bill Maher, and I'm not a comedian, I'll try to retell it. He talks about, why is it that the one drug, how would aliens feel if they came down and saw that we were arresting all of these people for killing the one...
Oh, shit.
Okay.
Okay. All right, caller. Was there anything else?
No, I just wanted to know that.
All right. Well, thanks for calling. We'll go ahead and hang up so we can get some more calls in here. But I appreciate you calling. But as you were saying,
I wasn't sure what was being said there by the caller. I wasn't wanting to. Anyway, the point that Bill Maher said is, why is it that the one drug who's never killed anybody, that's the one that we arrest all the people for? 785,000 last year, I think it was, for marijuana. And you know, when we talk about the counterculture, you know, again, long-haired, wearing fringe, tie-dye shirt, whatever. I wear this shirt. This shirt speaks for me. Law enforcement against prohibition. We understand that all of these problems, marijuana, medical marijuana, needle exchange, all of these reform organizations are right. We work with them. We believe in them. We trust them to bring progress. But what we all have to realize is that by ending prohibition, all of these other problems go away. Then we're left with dealing with the medical problem of, you know, not addiction necessarily, but a dependence that can be dealt with either through diminished dose or replacing the drug or maybe psychiatric help.
Well, actually, that sounds like that newspaper article that they had in the Chronicle, was it about 3 weeks ago, that actually quoted you as treating it more as an addiction. Of course, they didn't specify, you know, that some users are not abusers, but, you know, as far as getting away from the criminal element.
Right. Do we have a call?
I think we got another caller here. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi. There's a few things that concern me in the debate over the legalization of medical marijuana. And I support it 100%, but it seems to me that the arguments and the strategies that we're hearing are the same ones we've been hearing for the better part of 30 years, and I'm uncertain why it is that a stronger, more concerted effort has been made to fine-tune that or streamline it a little bit better, you know, in the form of, you know, I think that most Americans, whether they use marijuana or not, have compassion. And what we're talking about here is compassion to the suffering. If postcards were simply sent out on mailing lists, I mean, product organizations that are pitching a product look at your mailboxes, do so much to get the word out about their product. Isn't it possible to lobby as many Americans as possible to simply write their senators and congressmen over the legitimacy of allowing people who are suffering to ease their suffering? This seems like a no-brainer to me. I think most Americans are aware that there are a tremendous number of injustices happening in association with the war against drugs. Most Americans are aware of that. I think that there's not enough emphasis or effort in bringing in national media, such as 2020 or Dateline, and really create you know, get their attention to support or at least cover the story that, you know, large numbers of people are suffering, and this needs to be taken more seriously by, you know, the senators and congressmen. And I think that most people in America would, given the choice, whether they, you know, use or not, would say, yes, this is a legitimate way to ease the suffering of people. We see commercials all the time of starving children and pathetic faces. Let's show some of the faces of people who are suffering from horrific diseases to Americans and let them make the decision that this is a reasonable alternative to some of the horrible pharmaceutical drugs that are out there, in most cases doing more damage than they're actually solving.
Oh, definitely.
Not to mention.
Well put indeed. That has been brought forward. I mean, the fact is, in those, I think it's 12 states now that have medical marijuana laws, many times those patients were brought forward for people to realize who we're talking about, what the benefit is, who would benefit.
Well, I definitely agree with her as far as letting your representatives know. I know Buford, he always ends the show saying that it's going to take people like everyone out there watching to call your representative, to write them a handwritten letter.
Yes.
If you're one of the geeks, if you can go to HoustonNormal.org or normal.org, I think Drug Policy Alliance, drugpolicy.org,
MPP.org.
Basically on the normal site you can put in your zip code. It'll look up your representatives. There's a pre-written letter that you can use, or you can write your own letter. And
Exactly.
you have the option of either emailing it to them or actually faxing it. I think there's a cost involved as far as the faxing. We've got about 4 more minutes left.
I want to respond a little bit to her thought that to bring forward more information, because the drug czar tours the nation saying there is no legitimate medical establishment that says marijuana is good. This Friday on the Century of Lies show at 1 o'clock on KPFT 90.1 FM, I'm going to bring in a representative of NORML, and he's going to discuss the 120 medical reports that have been issued since the year 2000 proclaiming marijuana to be a positive and useful medicine. Paul Armentano is the gentleman's name. That will be this Friday at 1 o'clock on KPFT.
Okay, we got just a few minutes left. John tells me we got a caller. Caller, we've got just about a minute or two left, so if you please make it quick, but you have a question or comment?
Yeah, absolutely. Basically this, I'm curious. It's like medical marijuana would seem to make sense to me with individuals who either have a debilitating disease or AIDS. Basically, it would increase their appetite, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. And well, that's been proven over and over again. It was one of the original reasons for which marijuana was available back when it was legal. And it's been proven now, scientific studies being done in San Francisco and elsewhere about its legitimacy, about its effectiveness at treating these maladies, as you say, AIDS and wasting syndrome type disease.
Okay, thanks for your call.
Exactly. So basically, why isn't our government doing something about this? I mean, fuck the war in Iraq.
Okay, thanks for your call. Yeah, he definitely had some good points there. We've got just about a couple of minutes left. So I guess we want to start wrapping this up. I want to mention one more time, this Saturday, September 23rd at Super Happy Funland, 2610 Ashland, we'll be having a screening of the movie Hempsters. And coming up Friday at 1 o'clock, we have Century of Lies, and at 7, Cultural Baggage.
On KPFT 90.1 FM. And I want to mention, I got a chance to meet with Gatewood Galbraith up in New York. He is quite a character. He started out as a down-and-out hippie, developed an attitude, got a law degree, set himself to work, and he's now one of the busiest attorneys in Kentucky, besides perennial running for governor.
Actually,
he's quite a guy. You should come out and meet him. Actually,
he might be helping out with the case with Willie, I think I mentioned earlier. But we've got just about a little under a minute, and we want to thank everyone for tuning in. Join us in 2 weeks on YouTube.com. If you have access to the internet, I usually archive those shows up to the internet, so check that out. Go to dpft.org, click on Drugs, Crime, and Politics. We'll be back in about 2 weeks. Be sure to tune in to Dean's show. Hope to see you out at Super Happy Funland, and we'll see you next time here on Drugs, Crime, and Politics.
Courage. Steve, thank you so much.
All right, no problem.
I appreciate the opportunity.
All right.